After being woken by a sound, I open my eyes with a measure of reluctance. Turning my head to the left, I find the rain outside sweeps against the windows loudly. Spray after wind-blown spray lashes against the glass, as if it tries its hardest to make up for summer's previous heat. I sit up on the futon, holding the back of my neck to try and subdue the pain from my awkward sleeping position. By all accounts, I should be lamenting the turn in the weather, given that this is our last day here. The events of yesterday refuse to stop flooding my mind, though. The feeling of holding Lily's crying body in my arms, that's the weirdest thing you could have said first. The rush of lust and hormone, I guess you're going chronologically, but I feel like you're skipping the part where you passed out from your heart condition. The feeling of holding Lily's crying body in my arms, the rust of lust and hormones, sorry I have bad hiccups, lust and hormones, I feel like I have hiccups every time I record. The rush of lust and hormones that flowed through us as we spent our night together. It seems almost futile to try and rationalize everything that happened. In an attempt to distract myself, I groan and lean over to retrieve my bag without standing. Pulling out one bottle after another, I take the daily's regimen worth of pills from their containers and swallow them without further ado. It took a surprisingly short amount of time to get used to swallowing pills without water. That said, I suppose the same thing goes for getting used to living in a school for disabled students. Remembering Yamaku, I become all the more grateful for having the chance to get away, even if it's just for the shortest of times. I appreciate the chance to spend time alone with Lilly and Hanako, away from the bustle of school life, even considering the latest complications. I never thought I'd say it, but the idea of living away from the city in a nice, tranquil area is an inviting one. It's a thought that, barely a year ago, would have seemed simply ludicrous. A flash of pink, no doubt Hanako's gown, a flash of pink, Jesus, no doubt Hanako's gown peeks from around the corner. Realizing I might look a sight since I've only just woken up, I slap the remaining pills into my mouth and run a hand through my hair. Good morning, Hisao. Go. I reply to her, completely forgetting that I'm in the middle of swallowing a particularly large pill. Coughing and sputtering, I violently gag on it. That's so. After sputtering loudly and tapping my chest a couple times to force it down, I manage to recover. I'm fine. Sorry, I forgot I was swallowing. Sorry, I didn't mean to. I hold my hand up, gesturing for Hanako to stop. I gagged. It's my fault. Morning, Hanako. She pauses a moment before bowing in reply. Staggering behind Hanako is a familiar figure of Lilly, also dressed in her pajamas. With her eyes full of sleep and hair bedrangled, she's a sight to behold. Hi, Lilly. Good morning, Hisao. For a while, a silence hangs in the air, as neither of us knows what to do. Given what happened last night, we both have more than enough reason to be finding the situation awkward. Just how are we meant to react to meeting each other after something like that? The best course of action would probably be to talk to Lilly alone to set things in order. I'll start making breakfast. Lilly evidently catches on to my train of thought. I'll help. Hanako, could you set the table? She nods, her head disappearing into a cupboard as she quickly goes about her assigned task. How long does it take to set a table? That's like 2 minutes. I rub a little more sleep out of my eyes. Sorry, I gotta sit down different. It's so uncomfortable. My desk is different now. It's like lower? Or maybe it's higher. I'm not sure, but my knees like hit the top of it. Sorry, you don't care. I rub a little more sleep out of my eyes as I wander over the fridge and take out some milk. And Lilly grabs various brightly colored boxes from some of the lower cupboards on my side. Or is it just cereal? While we make the rather bland-looking meal, I whisper somewhat more quietly than usual. Knowing Lily's hearing, she wouldn't have any trouble catching what I say. Are you okay, Lilly? After last night? She gives a delicate nod, her expression weak. Though her tiredness surely plays a part, she seems genuinely unsure about what's happened between us and how to move ahead. Can't say I blame her, considering my feelings are the same. I'm sorry, Sal. I wasn't thinking straight yesterday. I never stopped to consider you or Hanako, and I even went as far as... She's winding herself up. She's, with her hands and voice both tightening, I give her a gentle bump to try and lighten up the situation. You don't have to apologize. I said I liked you as well, after all. But As her composure begins to falter, it becomes obvious that there's no alternative. Turning to Lilly, I embrace her tall frame. She offers no resistance at all, thankfully pulling back just from the edge of her emotions. Hanako walks in. Ah! Despite our reassuring embrace lasting only a matter of seconds, I notice Hanako wordlessly watching. The plate in her hand hovers inches above the table, her action halted midway by the sight. Are we going to talk about it? I hope we talk about it. The clatter of utensils against the plates is only the sound to be heard as we silently eat. Whereas only two of us may have been unsure of ourselves, the entire situation has changed. After weeks of blissful friendship, whiling away, this is what I've wanted the entire game. After weeks of blissful friendship, whiling away the days with shared meals and chatter with little meaning, the relationship of Lily and me, no, that of all of us, has irreversibly changed. I can't take this. Lily? She solemnly nods, gently laying her spoon on the plate in front of her. Neither of us knows how exactly we regard each other, let alone how Hanako would view us. This might seem abrupt, but I've confessed to Hisao. For a moment, Hanako looks almost confused, precisely the reaction I thought she would have. She eventually nods, her spoon still in her mouth, as she does. Did you accept? I did. I'm so glad we're having this conversation. I've freaked out about this so many times throughout the series, and how, like, neither girl knows. Or, like, the opposite girl never knows. And this is so powerful right now. I'm so glad. She gives us a smile so large, so earnest. Oh, she's happy for us. Yeah, let's go. So earnest. I find myself flushing. I think it's the brightest I've ever seen her expression look. Then I'm happy. I'm really, really happy. I'm sorry for not telling you anything about it before. Things have been... Hanako shakes her head from side to side empathetically, apparently forgetting in her rush that Lily couldn't possibly notice. She begins fiddling with her fingers, looking a little more nervous than she did before. To be honest, I began to think you might like each other a while ago. At first I didn't really know what to think, but I decided in the end that if my friends are happy, then I'm happy. I was really glad. Oh my gosh, she's talking so much. I was really glad to have another friend when we met Hisao, so you finding love through him is even better, right? Feeling a relief at her acceptance of our relationship falls over me like a wave. The same happens to Lily, judging by her expression. Thank you, Hanako. I really appreciate you being so understanding. Lily's voice still sounds slightly apologetic, or at least unsure. This doesn't escape Hanako, who appears lost in thought for a few moments before turning to me. Hisao, do you mind if Lily and I go outside for a bit? No. Feel free. Hanako? Hanako gets up from her seat, taking Lily's hand and almost dragging her from the table in her excitement. It's so cute sounding. Considering Lily's typically slow and steady pace, Hanako's haste makes her footing awkward as she almost loses her balance a couple of times. It's a pretty amusing sight, leaving me wordless as I watch them disappear out of the door. It's only now that I realize the rain stopped, being replaced by a sky seemingly all the more vivid and bright to make up for this morning's drab and gray expanse. For Hanako, this must be a pretty big revelation. Lily and I are really the only people she associates with, almost as if we were parents in her own stead. I suppose that might as well be the best way to describe the relationship we share, a father, mother, and daughter, all playing around our little make-believe family as if it could last forever. It might be a strange dynamic, and one that certainly can't last for long, but maybe just for this one small moment, it's okay. As I stand from the table and go join Lily and Hanako in the fields outside, why would you go join them? They literally left so they could talk about you. Bro, I nod to myself in affirmation. This one small moment of happiness, no matter how brief, will last with me, with all of us, forever. It's a pretty bathroom. Submerged in deep, hot water, I let a drawn-out sigh escape my lips. The feeling of seemingly every muscle in my body relaxing is euphoric. I have no idea how long it's been since I had a genuine hot bath, but right now, I can hardly be bothered trying to remember. Oh boy, it's a big one. Maybe I'm giving the simple fact that, for once, I get to have a real bath more credit than it's due. The change to just calm down, allow myself to unwind, and have some time to myself is a welcome one. Hanako, Lily, and I wander about outside, exploring the extent of surprisingly large tract of land surrounding the house. Then we spent the majority of the afternoon resting, watching television, reading, and playing cards. It may not have been the most exciting finale to the trip, but such tranquil peacefulness is something to savor. Even after we return to school tomorrow, I think I'll remember this little house in Hokkaido for a long time. It's a pity that we only have a couple more hours to spend before getting to get the train back. All I can do is yawn contently while I watch the steam slowly rising from the clear water's placid surface, my eyes eventually locking onto the ceiling. Our exams are imminent, and I've barely studied at all for them. On top of that, I don't even know what I'll do after graduation. Passing exams is all well and good, but to what end? Also now, of all times, getting into a relationship. What the hell am I doing? Guess I shouldn't talk like that. What's done is done, And maybe this could be viewed as just another aspect of my new life that I'm working on. I enjoy being with Lilly, and there's more to life than school and a career after all. As I busily attempt to rationalize all that's happened, I hear a series of raps on the door. I pick myself up and sit upright, trying to figure out the source. It's Hanako rapping her fucking brains out. It's crazy. She's got bars for days. 3, no more, no less. Light yet assertive in their tapping, and timed regularly enough to tune a metronome. I'd be extremely surprised if that wasn't Lilly. May I come in? Yeah, it's Lilly. I'm still in the bath. I'll be out in a sec. I know. She's blind. She can't see you naked. And even if she did, you've already fucked. It doesn't matter. The voice coming from the other side of the door freezes me. After a second's thought, I rest on the side of the bath and let my arms dangle over the side. Despite trying my best to play it off, I can't help letting my mind wander. Sure, come in. With that, she opens the door, slowly walking into the room and closing it behind her. She looks oddly calm, countering my racing heart. Hey, Lilly. Do you mind if I take a bath with you? I don't mind. Go ahead. With a small nod, she begins to lift her sweater off her shoulders, baring her chest little by little. She went from 0 to 100 in 2 episodes. This is crazy. I could do that for you, if you like. Refused. Why? Her face shows she's still not overly comfortable with letting me attend to her. I can't say I blame her. Okay, but we're doing this, though. She continues undressing, her shirt and skirt falling to the floor and leaving her in a white lace bra and panties. Eventually, she stands bare in the center of the room. Compared to last time, it's a lot easier to take in her entire figure. It's a wonderful sight. Is how? You're thinking perverted thoughts, aren't you? You just got naked in front of me, Lilly. Give me a break. Yeah, you're undressing in front of me. She furrows her brow in the thought. I guess it would be somewhat more erotic for you than me. Why? Because you could see his how. She gives a small, lighthearted chuckle, which seems to settle her nerves a little. If this is too much for you, Sal, I can come back later. No, this is fine. I'm just a bit, well, you're really beautiful, you know? My earnest comment draws a vivid red blush from Lilly. This how? I give a small grin. She's cute when she's taken off guard. In any case, may I come in? Sure. I lean forwards and take her soft hands in mine, helping her over the side of the bath. She feels out of the side of the bathtub, then slowly lowers herself in. I just keep thinking of Hanako and, like, how weird this must be for her. She has, like... Did that fade? Oh, that is fading. Oh, what is happening here? What are those? Why are they doing that? Was that just steam? Sorry. I'm just thinking about Hanako and how it's like 2 days ago, her friends were just friends, and now they're like going and taking a bath with each other out of nowhere. It's got to be like the weirdest thing. She's just on the couch watching TV being like, they're just taking a bath right now. Anyway. She feels out of the side of the bathtub, then slowly lowers herself in, my breath catching when she sits and leans back, her back onto my front, her legs inside mine. I'd expect her to sit on the other end. That's cute. This part's cute. This part's erotic, I guess. Sorry, that was a weird descriptor word. I didn't know what to call it. Letting out a long breath as I calm myself, I rest my arms on the sides of the bath as I struggle to control my urges. Far from missing the sight of her assets, the feeling of her body against mine is surprisingly relaxing. If Lily's so sensitive to touch, it must all be the more so for her. You run your baths quite hot, don't you? A bit. Do you want me to run some cold water to cool it down a bit? She gives a small shake of her head. No, this is fine. Okay. I'm sorry, her face is just really cute. The conversation comes to an abrupt end, silence taking over. A very long and awkward silence. Maybe this was a bit too... Don't worry, it's okay. The situation only becomes more awkward. As if to distract herself, Lilly runs her free hand over her legs while holding onto one of her breasts for modesty. I sit idly watching the wall ahead of me rising steam, every now and again stealing a glimpse at her body. The white of her skin glistens as she keeps sliding her hand over her legs, their length and tone all the more obvious. You know, compared to Akira, you look a lot more foreign. Such a weird time to be bringing up Akira. Also, Akira has red eyes. What do you mean, bro? She looks alien. I took after my mother's side, genetically. Akira took after my father's more. I guess that makes sense. How on earth did a native Scot and Japanese businessman meet anyway? My mother was a journalist. She met my father while he was at a conference in Inverness. Oh, I see. Taking after your Scottish side would explain your height, I suppose. I look back down at her as she nods, the side her ridiculousness of the situation. This really is too much, isn't it? You're enjoying it, though, aren't you? In some ways, yes. I guess things turned out okay, in the end. Everything settled down, Hanako took our relationship well, and we'll be going back to school tomorrow. Indeed, it's a shame to be going back so soon. We'll still have our memories in this place. Memories, huh? I suppose so. We'll have to see how everything goes once we get back, but for now, I'm just glad you like me. I've been winding myself up for weeks about that, so I'm thankful that things are turning out like this. She nods, leaning into me as we share warmth of our bodies. I'm not sure whether she'll be okay with it or not, but my temptation rapidly begins to get the better of my self-restraint. Hey, Lily? Yes? How was it? Last night, that is. She pauses in on the thought before looking down slightly. A delicate smile finds its way onto her lips as she blushes, her body becoming more relaxed. It's more than enough to answer the question. Even as I give a small nod in response, thoughts of last night run through my mind. Considering the situation, I don't think anyone would blame me. So, your heart's beating. Her voice is cut off as I delicately place my hand on her thigh. While I'd resisted before, the memory of our first time is enough to make me give in. She lets her body lean into mine without a word of protest, an invitation that'd be hard to ignore. I place a small kiss on her neck to accept before slowly moving my hand down her smooth legs. Hisao, please. Even as she says it, her mouth curls upward into a smile, her tone caught between embarrassment and awkward giggling. Eventually, she takes one of my hands in hers, guiding it to her right breast. I greatly appreciate the tentative guidance she's willing to give to me. All the sighs of tension in her body give way. I continue to take in the feeling of her soft skin, redoubled as my other hand slips between her legs. I wonder if the feeling of my hands on her is exaggerated by her lack of sight. Yes, I think so. That's how it works, since her other senses are so finely tuned. She does seem to somewhat be enjoying it to a surprising extent. After all, it gives me a somewhat odd feeling, but a pleasurable one. It only takes a few minutes before her body starts to squirm ever so slightly. Her efforts to stifle her moaning and becoming visible with her purses her lips. Her light... oh, God, jeez. Sorry, I'm dying here. Her light-hearted whispers, protestations, become noticeably more quiet. I don't know what that... This makes me realize all her squirming against my body's made me increasingly excited as well. Lily... I withdraw my hands to give her added senses time to respond, adult senses. Nodding, she shakily stands and offers her hands to me to lead her out of the crumpled bathtub. Why would you lead? Oh, okay. She maneuvers. She maneuvers herself out of the bath as I do, our hands holding each other's. I eventually sit beside the bathtub, the two of us fussing around a little until we get comfortable. With a small gasp, desperately constrained to avoid being audible outside, she lowers herself onto me once again. The way she moves makes it obvious that she must be on the verge of her climax. Bro, we just started like 2 minutes ago. She slowly starts to move her hips up and down, her tongue finding mine. Sorry, I gotta slow down. As she holds my face upwards, I realize just how much pleasuring her has excited me. How? Despite her clouded eyes being shut, her tightening grip on my shoulders shows that she's nearing the end of her endurance. As our breathing becomes more and more ragged, I rapidly feel my limit approaching as well. A series of harsh breaths is the only warning before her final gasp of ecstasy, her entire body tensing and her fingernails digging into my shoulders. My loins hit hers. Loins. Both of us frozen against each other's climax. In a few precious seconds, it's all over, Lily slumping forward onto me as I try to regain myself. That was good. She takes a gulp of air before replying, steadying herself as she nods. She bows her head down to give me a small kiss, my hand reaching up to hold strands of her disheveled hair as we once again sit in blissful silence. Okay. That's a good way to end the day, I guess. A little bathtub.